Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to us about death, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed us that death is something that will come to each and every single person. Allah Azza wa Jal said, Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, that every single soul, it will taste death. Another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Aynama takunu, wherever it is that you might be, يُدَرِكُّمُ الْمَوْتُ وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ. Wherever you might be, death will come to you. Even if you place yourself inside towers that are high, fortified, death is going to grab you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, نَحْنُ قَدَّرْنَا بَيْنَكُمُ الْمَوْتَ وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمَسْبُوقِينَ. Allah said, Allah decreed death for every single one of us. And Allah is yet to be challenged. There's not a single person who survived death. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, وَمَا جَعَلْنَا لِبَشَرٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ الْخُلْدِ. Allah said, Muhammad, we never allowed for a man to live forever before you. Before you, Muhammad, no one ever lived forever. Life for eternity never existed for a human being. أَفَإِن مِتَّ, and Muhammad, if you die, فَهُمُ الْخَالِدُونَ. If you're going to die, Muhammad, do they think they will live? Did they think that if Allah, He took the life of the one that He loved the most, the one that was more important to Him than any other creation on the face of this planet, Allah made Him die? Did these people after you, Muhammad, do they think they will live? Never. Death will come to everyone, brothers, sisters. Even the angel of death himself will die. The angel of death himself will die. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the angel to blow the horn. And everyone is dead. And Allah will ask who remains. And it will be told to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, Jibreel, he remains. The angel of death, he remains. Allah, you remain. And then Allah will say, let death come to the angel Jibreel. Afterwards, Allah will decree for death to come to the angel of death himself. And no one will be remaining except for Allah Azza wa Jal. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, every single thing will perish except for His noble face, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then, my brothers and my sisters, if death is something so certain and death is something so concrete, it's in front of me and you, our very eyes, it's right there in front of us, then should it not be something that we give some time to? Should it not be something that we give some consideration to? Imam Qurtubi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, it reached me in his kitab at-Tadhkirah. He said, it reached me, Imam Qurtubi, he said, it reached me that the angel of death comes to visit each and every single one of you in your house 600 times a day. Any minute he can come and take your soul. And this is why the noble companion Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, he used to say, إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ. If you make it to the night time, my brothers and my sisters, don't expect that you'll wake up in the morning. إِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ, and if you wake up in the morning, فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءِ, do not expect that you will see the night. Any minute you can go. Some of the Salaf would say, death is like a sword. And it's placed, stretched out above your neck. It's hanging there. It's already there, it's lurking over you. All that's waiting is for Allah to tell the angel, take the soul. To take the soul. And when the angel of death comes knocking on your door, my sister, and when the angel of death comes on knocking on your door, my brother, the angel of death is not going to ask your permission. You're not a prophet. The angel of death is going to grab you, whether you're ready or not. So with that said, I think it's important that we reflect over the reality of death, and I want to go through some of its stages. First and foremost, we're going to look at the stage before death. Then we're going to look at the time of death. And then we're going to go to the grave. So 3 things we're going to look at today, inshallah. Number 1, we're going to look at the moments before death. Number 2, we are going to look at the moment of death itself. And then 3, we're going to look at the qabr, the grave, and what happens inside of it. What takes place before death? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and the pain of death, it's come. ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. That is the thing that you were trying to run away from. Your whole life you've been chasing after this world. Money, cars, jewelry, girls. You've been chasing after this worldly life. The glitters and the grams. You thought this day would never come. All day, you got sick, you go to the doctor, thinking you might die. Problems occur, you try to find safety and refuge. So you don't fall into a situation where death might overcome you. You won't walk down a certain street because you might get attacked down that street. You take whatever precaution you can so that you stay alive. When you're driving in a car and you see someone's coming at you fast, you pull the brakes because you don't want to die. You're trying to escape death. Every moment of your life, you're trying to avoid dying so you can live as long as you possibly can. But there's a time and a moment where that chase, that race, you're not going to win. Death's going to catch up with you. And you know what's catching up with you when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ. The pain of death, it's come. What is the pain of death? The pain of death is an excruciating pain that you feel moments before you start to die. Sakratul maut. It's something that you start to feel before you die. Aisha radiallahu anha narrated at the time when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was dying, he was going in and out of consciousness. And when he would come out of consciousness, because he had an extreme fever, extreme pain, extreme sickness, extreme headache, he had sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would say, Inna lil mawti la sakarat. That verily, verily, death, it has pain. This death, it has pains. Imam Ibn Abi Shaybah rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions a narration in his Musannaf that the children of Israel, Banu Israel, one day they walked out inside of a graveyard. And when they walked into the graveyard, they said, let's make dua to Allah, not to the graves. They said, let's make dua to Allah. What was their dua? They said, the dua we want to make is, we want Allah to bring someone out from the grave. We want Allah to bring a man who's dead, his body's in the grave, bring him out so that he can tell us about death. What's death like? How was it when you died? So we can be prepared for it. So they made the dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He brought a man out from the grave for them. And this man looked dark on his face. They noticed between his eyes on his forehead, he never even had a mark of sajda. This man looked gloomy. He said, what do you want from me? What do you people want? They want to know about death. He informs them about death. What did he say? He said, I have been dead for 100 years. And the pain that I felt before I died, the sakarat, the pain, the effect of that pain never left me for those 100 years. Now that he's standing outside of his grave, this is the first time he feels relaxed because he came back to life. We're not talking about the punishment he's feeling in his grave. That's something else. But the pain of death before you die, that fever, that pain, that sakarat that comes. He's saying 100 years I've been dead and buried, but the effects of that pain is still with me. That's how serious death is. The angel of death hasn't even taken a soul yet. This is the pain that you feel just before. Imam Qurtubi rahimahullah, he mentioned a narration from the Israeliyat, and as we know the narrations of the Israeliyat, we don't affirm them, nor do we deny them. As long as it doesn't oppose an evidence, or unless an evidence affirms it. If we have neither of the two, then we don't reject it, and we don't necessarily take it on board. It's there, we just narrate it like that. And the narration he mentioned was at the time when Musa alayhi salam died. And Musa, when he died, he was brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he was brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was narrated that Allah asked him, he said, Musa, how did you find death? How did you find death, Musa? And Musa alayhi salam said, he said, it was as if I had my skin peeled off me by a butcher who had a very sharp knife. In another narration, he mentioned it was as if I was a bird and there was a frying pan that was preheated and I was slapped on top of it. Imagine a bird frying on a frying pan. He said that's what it felt. Not during death. The pains of death before the moments of death. Brothers, that's just before you die. My sisters, that's before you die. Let's move on to the moment of death itself. The moment the angel of death comes and takes the soul of a person who's not righteous, of a person who's evil, a person who's corrupted. At that time, what did Allah Azza wa Jal say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and I'm talking about the evil soul. Allah said, وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذْ يَتَوَفَّى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. If only you can see. Who's Allah talking to? He's talking to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah said, وَلَوْ تَرَى Muhammad, if only you could see at the time the disbelievers, they die. See what? What does Allah say? That Muhammad, if only you could see. What is this talking about? Al-malaikatu, angels. Allah said, Muhammad, if only you could see the angels. Yadribuna, what are they doing? Slapping, striking, beating. What? Wujuhahum, the faces of these people, as they're ripping out their souls, they're slapping them on their faces. Not just that, وَأَدْبَارَهُم, their backs, they're striking them, beating them from their backs and their faces. And what they're saying, وَذُوقُوا عَذَابٍ, taste the punishment, al-hariq, of the blazing fire. That's the moment that the soul is being ripped out of the body. Another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَوْ تَرَى Muhammad, if only you could see Muhammad. See what? Is it ظَالِمِينَ, the oppressors, the people who are oppressive, the wrongdoers, those people. See them when? فِي غَمَرَاتِ الْمَوْتِ, at the time of death. وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ, and the angels, بَاسِطُوا أَيْدِيهِمْ, they stretch out their hands. Why? They're beating them as they're putting out their souls. And what did they say? أَخْرِجُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ, take out your soul. Take it out. Why? Because now you must be punished. You lived the life of disobedience. You were told and you were warned repeatedly over and over again. You knew this day would come. You did not care. You slept with whoever you wanted to sleep with. You fornicated with whoever you wanted to fornicate with. You had parents, you never respected them. You never used to respect and obey them. You used to use filthy language. Music you watch, Netflix, you're watching filthy movies and videos. Pornography, late night you're watching it. Hanging out with the wrong people, knowing you shouldn't be rolling with these people. Sisters, don't think you're exempt from this. Everything that the brothers are guilty of, you're guilty of in the exact same way. We live in this day and age, we know what's right, what's wrong. And what's worse is that we try to make excuses. What's worse, you try to be logical about it. Oh, that was a different day, it doesn't apply today. Make that excuse when you die. Tell the angel of death, the reason I did these things, why? I had no other choice. Make those excuses at that moment, those excuses will not stand. The reason it's too late now is because Quran came to you, my sisters and brothers. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came to this ummah. His sunnah is with us. You can go and learn this religion from any direction. You were taught the basics when you were growing up. You know what's right and wrong, but you became drowned. You drowned yourself with regards to the desires of this world. And because of it, you became lost and blind. And you fell face first into this haram. And you didn't wake up. You didn't wake up until the angel of death took your soul. And that's why some of the Salaf would say the people are drunk. The people are high. You're all buzzing, they would say. Including myself. They will say, we're all high, drunk. And the time we will come sober, when we will become sober is when? Is when the angel of death rips out your soul. So when the angel of death says, when it said, أَخْرِجُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, bring your souls out, come out. When it tells the soul, come out, the soul doesn't want to come out. The soul is scared because the soul knows what's coming. عذاب الحريق, a tormenting, blazing fire. So the soul wants to stay in, so the soul runs into the body. It runs into the body and it holds on. It holds on tight. And because it's holding on, and when it gets ripped out, it feels so much pain. And that's when Allah said, وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا. Allah took an oath by the angels who violently rip out the soul. Why are they violently ripping it out? The soul doesn't want to come out, it's holding on firm to the body. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he described the way the soul will come out. It's like you take some cotton wool, and what do? The cotton wool, you wrap it around a thorny branch. When you rip out the branch, what happens to the cotton wool? It rips. That ripping out of the branch is your soul. The cotton wool is your body. Of course, the person that's a righteous soul, the angel of death will come to you with a beautiful face. And it will come to you and it will take your soul out so smooth. It will be as if you have a jug of water and there's a drop of water and it's just flowing out smoothly from the jug. But that's for the righteous people. Inshallah, that's for you guys. But today, brothers, I don't want to talk to you too much about the righteous soul. You know why? Because we're asleep and we need to wake up. And sometimes you need a heavy alarm bell that's ringing so hard to wake you up because you keep putting that alarm on snooze otherwise. We live in a day and age where, you see, the default position is that we should be scared. You should be more scared when you're living in this world, my brothers and sisters, than you should be hopeful. Of course, fear and hope are two wings that you need to fly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But throughout the most of your life, what should you do? For a majority of your life, my brothers and sisters, you need to be people who are more scared. And the proof of this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned in Surah At-Tur that the people who made it to Jannah, the ones who actually made it to paradise, they will do what? They will speak to each other. They will ask each other, how did you make it to paradise? What did you do that got you accepted into this paradise? And they will say, when we were with our families in this world, we used to be in a state of fear. We were scared. We were people who lived in fear. Fear of Allah's anger. Fear of Allah's punishment. And that's the default position. Fear. But not so scared that you lose yourself and think Allah will never forgive you. That's the balance of mercy. The scholars would say that the reason Allah put verses of mercy and the way that the verses of mercy and the hadith of mercy are is that your default position is you're scared. You're hearing about hellfire, day of judgment, this, that, all of these things taking place, and you're so scared that your soul is literally about to jump out your body, and suddenly you come across that ayah, Wallahu Ghafur Rahim, but Allah is merciful and forgiving, so it calms you down. It calms you down. But then you go back into your scary mode. You're scared again, and then suddenly you come across an ayah, Inna Allaha Ghafurun. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving. Then it calms you down. Suddenly you go back to your scare mode, and your soul's about to leave your body because you're so scared. But then you come across mercy and it calms you down. That's what it should be like, but we're the other way. For us, when we go home, we're not scared. When you're with your family, you're not scared. When you're with your family, what are you doing? You're chilling, you're laughing, you're cracking jokes with the boys, you're just having a good time, you're having a laugh. That's what you and me are doing. And what is it? When we're having too much fun and you're about to commit sin, to calm you down and bring you back down to obedience of Allah, you have to go listen to a lecture so you get a bit scared. Go watch a video online so you get a bit scared. Go to someone, can I get some advice, because you get a bit scared. But then once that fear leaves, you go back to being relaxed. It's supposed to be the other way around. It's supposed to be the other way around. Throughout your life, more fear than hope. But at the time of death, you give the person more hope than fear. Because now he's dying. You want him to be confident and have good thoughts about Allah who he's going to. So at the time of death, you remind him of the good things that he's done and tell him, inshallah, you're going to the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, so that shaitan doesn't make him lose hope at the last minutes. That reason I'm saying this to you is because I don't want to talk too much about the good soul. We don't need to hear about that right now. Right now, we need to hear about the evil soul. Because really and truly, we're suffering with sicknesses and diseases in our hearts, and we need to wake up. So we need to take a lesson from this and put ourselves in the shoes of this person who is dying in a wretched way. Because if you do that today, then when you're actually dying, inshallah, you won't be like this person. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah will not combine two fears in the heart of his slave. It will not be that you're scared in this life and you're scared in the next life. Either you'll be scared in this life and happy in the next, or happy in this and scared in the next. You take your pick. So today, let's reflect over the fear of the next life, in this life, so that when the angel of death comes and takes your soul, because it will happen, he will take your soul, then at that time, because you were scared previously, it kept you from doing sins, and you led a good life. So now when the angel of death takes your soul, the angel will take it in a very good way. Let's take some other verses about the moment of death. Wallahi, this is one of the scariest verses in the Quran that describes the moment a person is dying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كَلَّا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كَلَّا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ التَّرَاقِيَ وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَاقٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned when the soul, it reaches your collarbone. You see, the soul, when it's pulled out of the body, it comes out of the whole body, right? Eventually, the soul will get to a point where it reaches the collarbone, my brothers and sisters. At that stage, it's too late. You can repent all you want. You can ask for as much forgiveness as you want. But at that point, it's too late. No one is going to help you. Now it's just you and the angel of death. Allah said, كَلَّا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ التَّرَاقِيَ. When it happens that the soul reaches the throat, قِيلَ, it will be said, Man, who? Raq. Who will cure this person? You're all there watching this person dying right now. We're all around him. We're close to him. We can see his body. We can see his body starting to lose breath. We can see his soul is leaving his body. At the time the soul is leaving his body, husband, wife, mom, dad, brother, sister, friends, fam, everyone is there. But it is said, Man, Raq. Who will cure him? Who will give him life? Who will bring him back? Who is going to stop his body from leaving his soul? Who will prevent the angel of death from taking his soul? No one. And that's why Allah said, وَذَنَّ أَنَّهُ الْفِرَاقِ. The person who's dying, he knows, my time has come. No one is going to save me. Nothing can help me. Mom is screaming. Dad is crying. Wife is screaming. Kids are crying. He's dying. Call the doctor. Where's the doctor? Look, he stopped breathing. Everyone's going crazy. Who's going to help him? Someone come save him. But he knows. وَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ الْفِرَاقِ. It's too late. Everyone, I'm gone. وَالْتَفَّتِ السَّاقُ بِالسَّاقِ. Before you know it, he's shrouded. He's put inside of his coffin. He's thrown into the grave. Now he's inside of the grave. What is going to happen to him? The Prophet ﷺ described this moment. The hadith of Bara ibn Azib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, narrated in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, also Imam Abu Dawood, he mentions. It's a long hadith, so pay attention. What happens that now he's been thrown inside of his grave? At that point and at that moment, we know from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the companions and the Prophet, they were going on a funeral procession. There was a dead body of a man from Medina, and they were carrying the body and they were taking him to the grave. When it came to the graveyard, in the graveyard site, there was no grave that was dug. Nothing was dug. So the Prophet ﷺ, he sat down by the grave where it was supposed to be dug. He took a twig and he started scribbling in the ground with it. You can sense the Prophet's frustration. You know, like when a person's in his own world, and just scribbling on the ground with a twig. The Sahaba are quiet, thinking, what's going on? The Prophet came, he just sat down. You can see he's concerned on his face. So they said, we're still, as if there were birds on our heads. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, seek refuge in Allah from the punishment of the grave. And then he repeated this 3 times. is to seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the punishment of the grave. The narration mentions 2 or 3 times. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam began to describe what happens inside of the grave. First, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about the righteous soul. He said, when the person is in the grave, 2 angels are going to come to this person. They're going to make him sit up. He's been lying down too long on that stretcher, lying down on that coffin for too long. Get up. They're going to make him sit up straight. No questions asked. Then ask him. Going to go straight into it. Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord? Who is your Lord? What does that question mean? Lord, Lord. What does Lord mean? Well, I don't like the English language because it doesn't really express what the word means. In Arabic, the word is Rabb. You know what Rabb means? Rabb means master. Master. If there's a master, then that means there is a slave. So when the angels ask you, who is your master? Can anyone ask that if he's not a slave? Can anyone answer that if he's not a slave? If you didn't live like a true slave, you will not be able to answer that question. If you did not enslave yourself to Allah, you are not going to be able to answer Allah. Some of you are slave to your girl. Your girl is your master. And you are your girl's slave. Some girls, they're slave for men. All day, every day, disrespecting herself for men. Sending them private snaps. Sending them DMs. She's one way outside. But inside the house, her dad thinks she's a righteous girl. Snapchat, she's doing all sorts of filth. Why? Because she wants to impress the men. She's a slave to men. Some of you are slave to what? To your own desires. Can't control yourself. One time, see something, have to jump in. Filth. Can't control yourself. Some of you slave to your tongues. Can't help keep swearing, keep using filthy, abusive language. Some of you are slave to your boys. The man told you, listen, come, let's roll somewhere, you roll. You know you shouldn't be hanging around with these people, but you can't say no. You know why? Because they're your master. You are their slave. Some of you are slave to money. Drug money, you'll do whatever for it. Fraud money, you'll do whatever for it. Riba, usury, interest, haram money, you do whatever for it. The Prophet said, Abdul Dinar or Abdul Dirham, the equivalent to what we would say the slave of the penny and the pound. The slave of the penny and the pound. Who is your master? The one who wakes up in the morning when everyone else is asleep and he cleans himself and he does wudu at a time when everyone else is asleep in the cold.
There's a dark blue car, LL15 in the way. If you could please move your car, and anyone, if you know your car is in the way, that shouldn't really park it there, inshallah. So.
The one who's the real slave is the one who he wakes up in the morning when everyone else is asleep and it's cold, and he knows the water's not hot, and he makes wudu. Why? Because he's a slave. He's there to please his master. The one who's a better slave, he wakes up an hour before Fajr. He prays Tahajjud when every single person is sleeping and they are in bed with the ones that they love. The husband's with his wife. The mothers are with their children. But this sister, she loves Allah. So she stands up in the middle of the night. She gets up 1 hour early. She makes her wudu. Everyone else is asleep. No one knows. This is real love. This is real intimate. She's in one corner of her house and she raises her hands, she makes dua to Allah, and she prays her rak'atayn, she prays her witr, she makes dua, she reads some Quran. That sister, she's a true slave of Allah. That makes sense? That person, when the angels in the grave, when they come and they say, Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord? They're the ones who can answer and say, Allah. Second question they ask, they say, what was your religion? Ma deenuk, what was your deen? What was your way of life? Religion, deen is your way of life. What is your way of life? The Western way of life? The secular way of life? Did you live the uni life? Huh? Did you live uni life? Was that your way of life? Uni life? Freshers, SU, parties. Some of you lived a street life. Was that your deen? Was your religion the streets? Was that your deen? Some of you lived a corporate life. Money, business, phone calls. Was that your deen? I'm not saying uni is haram. I'm not saying work is haram. But I'm saying, what was your way of life? My way of life is Islam, but I work. Your way of life is Islam, but you go uni. What dominates your life? What are the principles that you live by? Ask yourself, do you uphold the pillars of Islam? Because our way of life has pillars. Pillar is something that something stands on. Imagine these are two pillars and I place a roof on top. If I knock the pillar out, what happens to the roof? It caves in, right? So Islam is the roof and it stands on 5 pillars. Shahada, Salah, Zakah, fasting and Hajj. So I'm saying, are you upholding these? Or are you upholding the way, the uni way, the corporate way, the street way? Like in a person who lived by Islam, he implemented what Allah said, do this. And she never asked questions. And he or she implemented what Allah told them not to do, and they never asked questions. And they went about their way. Those people, they're going to say, Islam was my deen. They're going to say Islam. That's how they're going to answer in the grave. And then the third question will be asked, who is your prophet? Or what do you say about this man that was sent to you? Do you think you will be able to say Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was your prophet? Do you think you'll be able to do that? Shall I tell you how you'll be able to do it? What was the job of the prophet? Who here can tell me why the prophet was? What is the single job of the prophet? Who can tell me that? The one single job. And give me an evidence from the Quran. This is why Allah sent the prophet. Who could tell me that? Anyone know? Go on. Okay. But what does that necessitate? With regards to you. What Allah sent the prophet for something for you to do. With regards to him. To spread the message of Islam. What does that necessitate? Everything you could say the prophet was sent to spread the message of Islam, to give glad tidings, to give warnings, to do what it all comes back down to one thing. All of that means that you need to do one thing with regards to the prophet. Brothers and sisters, this is very scary because the answer to these questions have been given to us. Huh? Worship the prophet? No, we don't worship the prophet. Pardon? Worship Allah. But the prophet, someone said it, I heard it. Follow him. Obey him. Allah said we never sent a messenger except that he was to be obeyed. Except that he was to be obeyed bi'idhnillah, with the permission of Allah. The whole point of the messenger is you obey him. That means you don't do bid'ah. And you don't question him when you hear a hadith, you don't say, oh, it's just a hadith. Bring it to me from the Quran. Are you mad? The whole point of the hadith is to explain the Quran. You can't understand the Quran without the hadith. Anything you hear that the Prophet did, you do it. Little things, wallahi, brothers and sisters. I want to show you how hard this is right now. I'm sorry, this is going to be so bad, and some of you might even get offended, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to show you how hard it is for people to follow and obey the Prophet ﷺ right now. We cannot even obey him in little things. How are you going to obey him in the bigger? I told you guys, stay close. Why am I seeing gaps? Watch, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say get close, and I promise you, you won't. So get close. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. Get close. Obey your messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Look around you. Make sure there's no gaps. You know, get close to each other. Tight. If you're on a chair, bring the chair close, come in close. Literally touch each other. Literally like this. Okay, come forward. Come forward. You see, it's hard. Like, get close means, you understand? Wallahi, mashallah, this. I'm happy to see this, mashallah. Sisters, are you not close? Sisters just always beefing each other. I'm not going to get close to her. I saw she was that girl that day that did XYZ. I saw she's trying to marry my man. Sisters, get close. MashaAllah. Allahumma barik. This just made me happy. MashaAllah. I wish you could see it the way I could see it. Allahumma barik. Obey the Prophet like this. If you can do it in these little things, then inshallah you can do it in the bigger things. But if we struggle with the smaller things, my brothers, how are we going to ever manage to obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the greater things? Do you see the point here? Another thing that people struggle when we pray, what do? They don't keep their feet shoulder to shoulder. There's gaps. When we pray, make sure there's no gaps, inshallah. All day, when I talk, let the sunnah go forth. And don't stop it with your weak opinions. Click a little like on Instagram. That was a nice video. But do you implement it though? Let the sunnah go forth, my brothers. My sisters, let the sunnah go forth. Obey the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in that situation, you will be able to respond and say, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was my messenger. So then the answers are 3. Who is your Lord? Who is your master? Only you can answer it if you're his slave. But what is your religion? You'll only be able to answer if you lived this lifestyle of Islam. Who is your prophet? You'll only be able to answer if you actually obeyed him. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Does that make sense? My brothers, Allah barik, and my sisters, mashallah. Coventry, man, I feel a lot of love for you guys right now, man. London is hard-headed, man. But to them get close, I've been shouting, screaming it for years, man, for months. They literally just look at me. I think it's subhanAllah. I'm not trying to be next to you when the angel of death comes. And then the 4th question. Who knew that there was a 4th question in the grave? Who knew there was a 4th question? MashaAllah. There was a 4th question? What is it? But you knew, huh? But you knew there was a 4th question, huh? Allahumma barik. That's good. At least you knew. Brothers, this is why you need to study your deen. People think there's only 3 questions in the grave. No, there's 4. There's a 4th question in the grave. If you can't answer it, I'm saying this is a test to which we were given the answers. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the 4th question is the angel will ask, what made you aware of this? They ask you, who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your Prophet? The 4th question is, what made you aware of this? And the person will say, I read Allah's book. Not just that I read it, I believed in it. And I considered it to be true. He said, I read Allah's book, I believed in it, and I considered it to be true. You have to read the book of Allah and believe in it to pass the test in the grave. Does that mean you just open up the Quran and you read it? The recitation of the Quran is of 2 types. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ. Who can finish the ayah? حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ أُولَٰئِكَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ وَمَن يَكْفُرْ بِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. Allah said, the ones who recite the Quran, who recite the book, the way that it deserves to be recited. They don't just recite it a mere recitation. They don't just recite it a mere alif, lam, mim. No. حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ. They recite it the way it deserves to be recited. What does that mean? We'll come to it in a second. But these people, أُولَٰئِكَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ. They are the ones who believe in it. They really believe in this book. They believe in the Quran. But then there are those who Allah said, وَمَن يَكْفُرْ بِهِ, but there are those who disbelieve in it. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ, they're going to be the losers. So what makes you a believer in the Quran and what makes you a disbeliever in the Quran? The ayah is mentioning the ones who recite it the way it deserves to be recited. They are the ones who really believe in it. And the ones who do not recite it the way that it deserves to be recited, they do not really believe in it. So what is haqqa tilawati? What is it? Haqqa tilawatihi. Haqqa tilawatihi, the way it deserves to be recited. You know what that means? It means to implement it. That's why Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah ta'ala and Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, they mentioned that there's the tilawa, which is of the tongue, the recitation of the tongue, and then there's the recitation of the body. My tongue recites Alif Lam Mim. My tongue recites that. But my body also recites by obeying Allah, by what the Quran told me to do. And by obeying Allah, by staying away from what Allah told me to stay away from in the Quran. Does that make sense? So then I ask you, some of us are struggling to even recite just the words, let alone recite it with our bodies. And how can you recite with your body if you don't know what the words mean? So you have to study your religion. You have to seek knowledge. Why is it that if I sent you a message from your loved one, sisters, pay attention. I sent you a message from the guy that wants to marry you, but the message is coded in a different language. You will go out of your way to find out, what does this word mean? What is this letter? My beloved loved one, he's sending me this message, this love message. What does it mean? You'd go out of your way to find that out. But I'm saying, is Allah not supposed to be the one that you love? وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. Allah said verily that the ones who believe, they are severe in their love for Allah. Are you not a believer? So then you should love Allah more than anyone else. But then why have you not wanted to decode the meanings of the Quran? And it's not just the Arabic language. Even the Arabic language is the foundation. But why don't you study Aqidah? Why don't you study Fiqh? Why don't you study Tawheed? Why don't you study Manhaj? Why don't you study Hadith? Why don't you study these subjects? Hadith, in and within itself, explains the meaning of the Quran. Some people think, let me just study Arabic language, I know Hadith, I know the Quran. No, because the whole point of the Hadith was لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ. Allah said, we sent this Quran to Muhammad so that you can explain it to the people. The Hadith explains the Quran. Studying the different sciences gives you knowledge of the Quran, my brothers and sisters. So seek knowledge so that you can answer that question. And I'm not saying go ahead and become a scholar. No one's saying you have to become an imam of the masjid. No. Remember, knowledge is of two types. There's knowledge which is obligatory upon every single individual. And there's knowledge that's not obligatory on every single individual. But it only becomes obligatory on you if you want to do certain things. Or it becomes obligatory on a community, as long as someone from the community does it. We call it fardul ayn and fardul kifaya. Fardul ayn is stuff that everyone needs to do. Salah, tahara. You need to know how to pray. You need to know how to clean yourself. If I ask you right now, how do you do wudu? I promise you, someone will make a major mistake in the wudu. Should we try it? Should we try it? Quickly. What do you do first when you do wudu? What's the first thing you do? You wash your hands. Oh, intention is a condition. So you're right. I'm not talking about the conditions. I'm talking about the actual obligations within the wudu. So what's the first thing that you do? You wash your hands? You say Bismillah first. Say Bismillah. The Prophet ﷺ said there's no salah for the one who there's no wudu for the one who doesn't say Bismillah. So you Bismillah. Good. Who knew that? Put your hand up. Okay, well most of you didn't. You see, it's important now. You need to know this. Good. So then what do you do after that? Sister, what do you do after that? After Bismillah, what do you do? Anyone can shout out, I don't mind. Wash your hands, right? Okay, I don't think this is how to do wudu because they're not talking. So then what do you do after that? You wash your face. And what's a part of your face? Your mouth and your nose. Okay? And where does your face start? Where does your face start from lengthwise? Where does it start from? One second. Length. Okay, lengthwise. Where does it start from? Where does it start? From where? No, tell me what it is. Go on. From the forehead, from the hairline. From what is a normal person's hairline until where? The chin. And what about widthwise? Where's the hair? Where's the head? from your ear to your ear. That is your face. That is your face. So you wash it. So your mouth, your nose, and then you wash the face. What can you do after that? Put your hand up. Okay. What do you do after that? Say that again? Put your hand up. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. What do you do after you wash your face? What do you after? Go on. You wash your arms? Wrong. You wash your hands again first. You see, a lot of people didn't know this. Pay attention. Who thinks that after your face you go straight to the arms to the elbow? Be honest. Who put your hand up if you thought that's what it was? No. Allah says, أيديهم. Wash your hands إلى المرافق, to your elbows. You have to come back and wash your hands again. You wash your right hand up to your arm, from your arm to your elbow, and you wash your elbow. Then you do the same with your left. If you do not wash your hands, my sisters and brothers, your wudu is not valid. When you come back after your face, you have to wash your hands again. Allah actually said it in the Quran. وَأَيْدِيَهُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ. Wallahi, I'm telling you basic. Wallahi, I don't want to turn this into a fiqh class, because you're going to see basic things that we need in order to solve, just in order to do the 5 pillars. Wallahi, we don't know them. And that's not me saying it to put you down, as in be like, oh, look at you, you're bad, you don't know. I'm not trying to embarrass you, put you on the spot. But what I'm trying to say is, wake up, smell the coffee. You need to know these things. There's no point me here talking to you about death. You're getting scared, but you don't know what you need in order to pass the test of death. Does that make sense? So inshallah ta'ala, when the person in the grave, he answers these questions correctly, a call will come from above. And the call will say, my servant has spoken the truth. The call will say, my servant has spoken the truth. And then it will be said, so spread a bed for him from paradise. Because the grave is a lonely place. It's an empty place. Have you ever looked inside of a grave? Has anyone here actually looked into a grave? Have you actually gone inside of a grave? I've gone inside of a grave. We did it together, right? It's a very surreal experience. I would ask you guys to do it, but you have to do it under proper supervision, because the grave can cave in. And then when you go in, you might not actually come out. So you have to make sure I'm not telling you go dig a grave and do it, because it can actually cave in. It's a very serious thing. But I done it, alhamdulillah, in a proper way. And it's an experience that I think if you guys are in touch with some Muslim cemeteries, some Muslim graveyards, everyone should be able to do that. Inshallah, tomorrow in Birmingham, I believe inshallah ta'ala, we're going to be bringing some coffins into the Matting and the Masjid one day. So Birmingham's not too far for you guys. So come inshallah, if you want to experience what it's like to lie in a coffin, to be wrapped up in a shroud, to be carried, we're going to do that inshallah ta'ala, as a little experiment tomorrow. But anyway, if you get a chance to, and I say again, with correct supervision and correct situation where people know what they're doing, to go inside of a grave and actually experience what it's like inside of the grave, wallahi, it is a very surreal experience. And you notice that your bed is the dirt, and literally, like the worms and the ants and the insects, they are your neighbours. And literally, you know what the maddest thing about being in a grave? I remember when I was lying down in the grave, and I'm alive right now, right? So I remember I actually looked over at my right, and I saw the wall, this part of the grave. Now that there's a dead person in there right now. And that person is either being punished, or that person is being rewarded. And then I looked to my left, and I was like, subhanAllah, there's another grave right here. I'm surrounded by dead people. They're dead in terms of this life, but they're alive in terms of their grave, in terms of the barzakh, hayatul barzakh, the life of the middle realm, the middle world, because there's this life, there's the afterlife, and then there's a life between it. That's called barzakh. They're alive in that. I'm not gonna lie, it's a very surreal experience, and it helps you really kind of put things into perspective, because you're earning this money, you're working so hard to build a nice house, to pay the bills for your house, you make sure the electricity works, the Wi-Fi works, the lights are on, the gas, the water, everything. But when you go into that grave That grave's your real home, my brothers and sisters. And there's no furniture in there. It's literally just dirt. That's your home. And you know, if you ever go to the graveyards and you look onto the dates when the people are dead, you'll see something powerful. You'll see that the people who are dead and buried, they've spent more time inside the grave. They've spent more time underneath the ground than they spent on top of the ground. A guy lived 20, 30 years, but he's been buried for the last 50 years. He died at the age of 30. 50 years he's been in his grave though. That's your real home. How do you furnish it though? Because I'm not trying to have a grave that's just dirt. So I'm trying to have a grave that's beautiful, nice, luxurious. I'm trying to have a grave that's a portion of paradise. That's what I'm trying to have. I think you're trying to have the same, right? I'm trying to have a proper, nice grave. I want to be in my grave chilling with, you know, in this dunya, I imagine the best things you got is Louis Vuitton and Lamborghinis. I'm trying to get whatever that equivalent is in the barzakh. So all you man are chilling, doing your thing, running the rat race. I'm trying to be chilling in my grave. But how? Answer these questions right, that's how. Because the moment you answer these questions right, and the caller calls and says, my servant spoke the truth, then it will be said, spread for him a bed from paradise. A bed from paradise will be spread out for you. So you don't have to lie in the dirt. You lie in a nice, comfy bed from paradise, inshallah. Because imagine you're sleeping. Everyone in the grave sleeping, right? You're going to sleep. Go sleep. I'm trying to lay down. I'm trying to lay down comfortable. I'm trying to have a bed from paradise. And then it will be said, open for him a door from paradise. Open for him, a door into paradise. Why? So you can see Jannah. Every day you're like, yo, that's where I'm going to be going. And you're in your grave, you're asking Allah, bring the hour. Bring it now, Ya Allah. Allah, bring the day of judgment now. That's scary for me and you, right? Because we're saying, Allah, don't bring the day of judgment today. But the guys in their grave who are righteous, who are seeing this right now, they're just saying, Allah, just bring that hour, because they can see paradise and they just want to go inside. So every day, Allah, bring that hour, bring it. But we're saying the opposite. And then some of the air and the perfume from Jannah will come into the grave. And a space will be made for him. His grave will be spread out. A space will be made as far as the eye can see. Other narrations mention that a very beautiful, handsome person will come into the grave. And the person in the grave will say, because imagine you're going to be lonely in your grave. But now you've got someone that comes to visit you. And then you look at this person, you say, SubhanAllah, you're a person who, I think you're going to bring me good. Who are you? The person will say, I am your good deeds. I am your good deeds. Because you never left good deeds in this life, Allah will not allow those good deeds to leave you in the next. That beautiful person will come and will keep you company inside of your grave. That's for the righteous person. But what about for the one who answers the questions wrong? What about the one who fails this test? Sadly, by the way, this is going to be the majority of people. You know that, right? Did you know that? Majority of people are going to fail the test. Allah said, أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. The majority of them will not believe. Majority of them will not believe. What happens with them? They will be asked, who is your Lord? Man Rabbuk. The angels will say, who is your Lord? The person will say, ha, ha. Like, you know, the person is asked to speak, ha, ha. You can't talk. You can't answer. So then the angels will ask him, what was your deen? Ha, ha. The narration mentions, he'll say. He'll be asked about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The man will say, ha, ha. I don't know. He doesn't know. And then suddenly when he answers those questions wrong, a caller will call from the sky and say, my servant has lied. And then it will be said, spread for him a bed from the hellfire. He will sleep on a bed from the hellfire. Then it will be said, clothe him from the clothings of the hellfire. Then it will be said, open for him a door from hellfire. And when that door opens, the heat, the scorching heat of hellfire comes into the grave. And this person, he makes statements that are different to what the person made before. The person before is saying, bring the day of judgment. This person is saying, Allah, don't bring the day of judgment. Because he can see where he is going. And then what will happen? Pay attention, sisters, brothers, pay attention. His grave will be compressed. His grave will, pay attention. His grave will squeeze him till his ribs overcome each other like this. Some of the narrations mention the grave will squeeze him so tight that when his ribs overcome like this, his heart, his lungs, his internal organs will start to squeeze outside of his nose. The organ, remember, you're tight, right? You're tightened. So your heart, your organs, everything inside your intestines, they're just going to start dripping outside of your nose. That's what happens. Sisters, does that sound gross and ugly? Does that sound disgusting? Brothers, does it sound disgusting? You spend your whole life disobeying Allah, trying to beautify yourself. Wear makeup in front of the guys, perfume in front of the guys. Dress in a way where you're not supposed to dress in front of the guys. In the grave, everyone's going to look ugly like that. In the grave, when those maggots are eating your face, when those worms are eating your face, and the grave squeezes you, and dripping outside from your nose and your squeezed body is your heart and your lungs and your intestines, and all of that is just pouring outside of you, you look pretty damn ugly. So what point was all that beautification then? What point was all that contouring in public? What point was wearing all them clothes that you shouldn't have been wearing in public? What point was looking so good and so beautiful? What point was society thinking of you a certain way and taking all them selfies so all the guys are clicking like, heart? What point was all that? You look ugly now. I remember I saw a very powerful picture on Instagram one time. It was a picture of a white shroud. You know, the shroud is the white cloth that you bury the body in, and it was wrapped around the body, and it was a body of a woman. Obviously, I can't see the woman because she wrapped in a white shroud, right? So what did it say? The caption said, she used to be beautiful. Yeah, she was. But now, she's a dead body, wrapped in a white shroud. Literally just going to put her in a grave in a second. And if she disobeyed Allah, her hearts and lungs, intestines, brains are going to be pouring out of her nose. And then this sinful, evil person will have a creature that's placed over him. This person doesn't have a righteous friend that comes to join him in his grave. He has a creature placed over him. He's blind, he can't see. This creature is dumb, he can't speak. He's blind, he can't see. He's dumb, he can't speak. Dumb, not meaning stupid, dumb as in you can't speak. And what happens? He's placed in charge of him. And he has a sledgehammer. It's such a hammer that if it were to strike this person, the person would become dust. It's that strong. And then this creature will take the hammer and it will strike the person so hard. One blow. And that sound can be heard by everything inside the east and the west. Everything hears except for the men and the jinn. You know the punishment of the grave, you know this, it actually can be heard. The Prophet ﷺ used to hear it himself. And the Prophet ﷺ said that even the animals hear it. And one time the Prophet ﷺ said, I would allow you to hear that which I can hear. But the Prophet didn't do that. Why? Because he said, I'm scared you're going to stop burying dead people. We'd end up just, when a person dies, we'd end up just hanging him on a tree, letting his body rot. We wouldn't dare bury the people because when they enter the grave, the screams are so tormenting. And now you can understand the Prophet ﷺ why he used to say, he said, if you knew what I knew, you would laugh little and you would cry a lot. So now, inshallah ta'ala, I want to go to the last part of the talk, inshallah ta'ala. Probably wrap it up in about 10, 15 minutes, 15 max, inshallah. I want to mention some reasons why people are going to be punished in their grave. I'm going to mention to you some specific examples, and I'm going to mention to you one general statement that Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he mentions Kitab al-Ruh. There's a long hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that's very well known, in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned that he had a dream. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his dreams were revelation. It wasn't like us. The Prophet's dreams were from Allah. Allah is teaching him something. So inside his dream, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, 2 angels, they came to me. And these 2 angels, they came to me and they took me. They told me proceed. They told me come. So they took me, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I saw a man who was standing over another man. The man who was on the ground, and there was a man who was standing on top. The man standing on top had a big boulder. And what he would do is he would take the boulder and he would smash it on the head of the guy who's below him. And when he would smash it, the guy's head would break to pieces. And the boulder would roll away. As the boulder rolls away, he goes to pick up the boulder, the guy's heads come back together. So he'd pick up the rock again. It's not a rock, it's a boulder. It's a big boulder. He'd take it and he'd smash it on his head one more time. And his head, again, it breaks. The boulder rolls away. As he goes to pick it up, the head comes back together. He picks up the boulder, he smashes it on his head one more time. And he keeps doing this, he keeps doing this, he keeps doing this. And the Prophet ﷺ looks and he says, what is this? What's happening here? What is this person? What's he done? What's going on? This is shocking. This is not a normal kind of punishment. Like, your head is being smashed again and again and again and again. The 2 angels said, no, come, let's keep moving. Proceed. And the Prophet ﷺ said, this time they took me to a man. And what was happening to him was that he had a sharp blade, like a hook, an iron hook. It was being placed on his cheek and he's being ripped all the way to the back of his head. And he had one on his nose and it's being ripped all the way to his eyes. And he's being ripped like this, from his mouth all the way to the back of the neck. His nose to his eyes. And after he ripped open one side, they'd go to the other half of his face. And as the other half of his face is being ripped from his nose to his eye, look, it's from his nose, wallahi, this is gruesome, wallahi. From his nose to his eye, then from his mouth all the way to the back of his neck. As this one starts to get ripped, this one starts to come back together. So it heals. And when they rip this one, they come back to this side, they rip it again. They rip it, the iron hook, they pull it back, rip his mouth open, rip his nose to his eyes. And as they do that, the face comes back, constantly swapping over from one side of his face to the other, ripping it with the iron hook. Not a blade. Blade is a cut. Iron hook is rip. A hook rips. A blade cuts, it slices, it's quick. A hook, it rips you open. And then the Prophet asked, what is this? And they say to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, proceed. We've got somewhere else to go, somewhere else to head. So they take him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the next place. And they take the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he sees a pit. That's an oven. He sees a pit, which is an oven. Inside of this pit, there are naked men and there are naked women. Young brothers and sisters, pay attention. There are naked men and there are naked women. And what happens? A fire starts to burn underneath them. And the fire, it reaches them. It starts to burn them. their flesh begins to burn inside of this oven. Who are they? The Prophet said when the fire reaches them, they start screaming loudly, crying, shrieking. Who are these people? The Prophet asked. They didn't answer. They told the Prophet, proceed. We've got somewhere else to go. Take him somewhere else. Take him to the next spot. The Prophet sees a river. The river is red. Red, the colour of blood. A blood river. And inside of it is a man. The man's swimming. He's trying to come out of the river. But as he comes, there's a man standing on the river bank. He's got a stone in his hand and he throws it into his mouth. Every time he's trying to come out of the river, he throws a stone inside of his mouth. He can't come out of the river. He's staying in this blood, river of blood. The Prophet asks, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who is this person? Who is the guy throwing it on him? Who is the guy drowning? Eventually, when they take the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam throughout the whole journey, they inform the Prophet that the man, the one whose head was being smashed in, that was him being punished in his grave because he was a man who used to sleep past the salah time. Fajr would come, she'd be sleeping. You didn't wake up. So now in the grave you're awake because your head's constantly being caved in, smashed in by this big fat boulder. And also it's the person who knew the Quran. He took some of the Quran, he took some of it, and he or she, they never implemented it. For that reason, their head is now being smashed to pieces. The person with the iron hook ripping open his face. This is a person who used to lie. A person used to speak lies from his mouth. Because he used to speak lies, his face was being ripped apart. The people who were being burnt in the oven, the ones who were naked, they were the people who used to have haram, illicit relationships with each other. Boyfriend, girlfriend. They used to fornicate with each other. You know, when a person does zina, when a person has illegal intercourse outside of marriage, and this person, when he does this filthy act, his and her entire body feels the pleasure of it. So now, when they are to be punished for this sin, the same way the entirety of their body felt pleasure, now the entirety of their body has to feel the pain. So they are ripped and stripped naked, and they're placed into a furnace, into an oven, and they are burnt inside of it. This sin of fornication is not a light sin, my sisters and brothers. Zina is from the mubiqat. It's from the destructive sins. The Prophet mentioned 7 destructive sins that destroy you. Now, to make it to college and uni, to find a brother and a sister who is not engaged in this filth is rare. Sit with the boys, you tell them, listen, bro, alhamdulillah, I ain't done nothing with a girl. They'll look at you and tell you, bro, stop lying. They don't believe it. Because it's normal. Like in the Prophet said, this is from the things that destroys you. It destroys you. Then there was the man who was inside of the river, the blood-like river. He took haram money. He took haram money. He used to take haram money. Riba, interest, usury. You know when you take a loan from someone and you tell them to give me usury back, interest back? Wallah, you're sucking their blood. You're making them give you their hard-earned money extra for no reason, just because you did them a favour. Or you're paying it back to the bank. You're letting them suck your blood. So now you swim in a river of blood inside of the grave. Alright, there's many other punishments inside of the grave. Sorry, I forgot to mention, the guy whose face was being ripped apart? The guy whose face was being ripped apart? It wasn't just a person who lied. It was a person who lied a lie that was such a lie that it spread across the earth. The Prophet said he lied a lie that spread across the earth. Or kama qala Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So now you might ask, how does a person speak a lie and it goes all across the earth? Tweet. Say a lie on Twitter. Next thing you know, hundreds, thousands of people from different countries are retweeting you, quoting your tweet, sharing your post, Instagram, sharing your snaps. Make a video, you lie in it, spreads around the world. What's worse is when you lie about others. People love on social media to talk about others. They love to talk about people, lie about them, take things out of context. See that lie spread across the world? What are you going to do inside of your grave? Right, there's many reasons to be punished in the grave, brothers and sisters. Another narration that Imam Tahawi in his Mushkil al-Athar, he mentioned, was that a man in his grave it was written for him that he was going to be whipped 100 times. So the man, he begged, and he begged, cried, he pleaded, until that 100 was made just one lash. So that one lash, when he was lashed with it, that one lash, his entire grave, it burst into flames. Screaming, shrieking after the lash, he turned around, he said, "What is it that I did that resulted in me being punished this way?" They told him, "You prayed one salah without wudu." How many of you, young brothers, young sisters, do that? Just to show your parents, look, I'm praying. No wudu, just jump into the prayer. So when they walk by, they see you praying, so they won't say nothing to you. Now what about the ones who do wudu? They don't even know how to do wudu properly, missing out the hands this whole time. So I told you have to study your deen, my brothers and sisters, so you have knowledge of these things. In summary, what are the things that cause you to be punished in your grave? Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, you know what he said? He said it's ignorance. Jahl, ignorance, is what causes you to be punished inside of your grave. Because the one who knows, he doesn't commit sins. But the one who doesn't know is the one who commits sins. And the sins are of three types. There is shirk, which is to worship someone besides Allah, and that is the worst. Then there is bid'ah, which is to invent something new in the religion and to oppose the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam by inventing something new in the religion. And that is the foundation of kufr, by the way. Because when you bring new things into the religion, eventually you keep bringing new things until you change. The religion is different now. Because remember, Christianity used to be Islam, but they changed it so much that it became a different religion. And then the third level of disobedience is sins, major sins, major sins. So I pray and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the punishment of the grave. I ask you all to make the dua every day in your salah, in your tashahhud. At the end of your tashahhud, the Prophet, he taught us to make the dua, to seek refuge in Allah, min adhab al-qabr, min adhab jahannam, to ask Allah to protect us from the punishment of the grave and the punishment of the hellfire, wa min fitnati al-mahya wal-mamat, to protect us from the test, the trial, the tribulation of life and death, and to protect us from the trial and the tribulation of Dajjal, the Antichrist, when he comes. This is dua. If you don't know it, learn it. The Prophet would make it in every salah. Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, he said this dua is wajib to make in your prayer. It's actually obligatory. So, with that said, subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Brothers and sisters, I need your attention for just 1 minute. Our brothers around the world, they need help. Some of them, if they don't get food and water to drink, they are going to die. And then there's others, like those who are back home, who live on the same streets as us. And if they don't get help in terms of spiritual help, they might lose their faith. Now, both those whose lives are in danger and whose faith are in danger, they both need to be helped. But I want to explain to you the repercussions of not helping both of them. You see, if you don't help those who are suffering when it comes to starvation, at least when they die, they will die Muslims. And all that they will leave, or all that they will lose at the end, is their life of this world. But if you don't help those brothers and sisters who are struggling in terms of their faith, if they die, then they might actually lose their afterlife and potentially be entered into the hellfire for a period of time, if not eternity. For that reason, it's important that we don't neglect these brothers. For that reason, we started up a project called Umrah with the Mandem, where we take brothers and sisters from around the world, specifically the UK, specifically London, and we take them with us. And we set up a program that facilitates for them to change. We also provide them support for when they return. And we always select a handful of brothers who can't afford it themselves. And this time, we have taken on board more people without paying anything than we ever have before. And we are in urgent need of their costs being covered. So if you would like to help facilitate towards someone's life changing, then please go to the link below, inshallah ta'ala, and donate generously. Remember, if they change their life, then you're actually helping them, inshallah ta'ala, be a part of saving their afterlife. And in terms of reward, then any good that they do from this point onwards, if they change because of your donation and you're sincere, then you're going to get all that reward as well. So on the Day of Judgment, you get this mountain of good deeds, prayers, charity, fasts, all this stuff that you've never done. But why did it come your way? Because you facilitated with Allah's permission for someone to make change. And then when he changed, he or she did all of these things. And now that reward is all on your scales on a Day of Judgment. So please, brothers and sisters, be as generous as you can. Go to the link below, donate like crazy. Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.